Howdy everyone, welcome to Brewing TV. I'm Jake Keeler.
I'm Michael Dawson.
You know, it's been almost a month since we've gotten our hands dirty and done some brewing. So today we're going to roll on down to Vine Park, which is a brew on premise location here in St. Paul, and join them for an experimental brew day where around 20 people got to brew with Aran Madden of Futhermore beer.
Back here, time to brew 5 gallons, take it apart, chop it up, put it back together. Experimenting.
Right
Stick
on.
around. All for brew.
Brew for all. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers. Spilling coffee.
Hey, how is everybody? That's the cooler.
Meet Aran Madden, brewer for Futhermore out of Spring Green, Wisconsin. Today he's in St. Paul, Minnesota at Vine Park, a brew on premise establishment where people come to brew and bottle their own beer. And Aran has a busy day ahead of him, a brew session that involves not 1, not 2, but 6 batches all at once. Fortunately, he has a lot of help.
Instead of taking months to work and rework test batches on his own, Aran recruited 6 brewing teams in the help of Dan and Andy at Vine Park. Their to-brew list includes 4 versions of an IPA and 2 variations on a summer beer.
Taking the IPA, the British gift to craft brewing, and calling into question why the British get to use the term India in naming their beers. And so, given the rich culinary tradition of India and the surrounds, we wanted to take some of those spices that, take it beyond hops and imagine for a moment what a big hoppy beer out of India would be. We did a recipe with rye masala, which is mustard, coriander, fenugreek, and black pepper, some cumin, and that's kind of the savory version, and did that in a kind of a big IPA. And in 2 smaller IPAs, we did a kind of a brighter, greener beer with tamarind for some souring, some coriander, cilantro, or known as green coriander, and some ginger. And then as the last beer in that series, a little bit more elegant, single spice cardamom, pretty pungent, known as the queen of spices. Just very complex on its own, so we just wanted to kind of let that play with the hops. These are for the dry hopping portion, and to make things easier on Vine Park, we're doing a pre-dry hop. So we're going to infuse this in beer, and it's pre-measured, it's pre-macerated. We beat it up so that we can get all the fresh greenness out of it when we put it into the fermenter, and we're just making it a little easier for them to add that when it comes time. We also did some some counterpoint beers so that everything wasn't a big spicy hop bomb. We did 2 session beers, a saison with some thyme and lemon and lime zest in it. And we did a lacto inoculated kind of white beer.
I don't know about you guys, but those ingredients sound pretty off the wall to me.
Yeah, like Indian spices. It sounds too much like food. It sounds too much like, you put too much salt, on your steak. It sounds like, you've adulterated the thing. And part of it is, our realization that everybody does an IPA. And if we put out an IPA, will anybody care? Will any beer drinker care that there's another IPA? They probably will, because people love IPAs, but just doesn't sort of feel like we're really offering anything if we do what's already been done. So part of it is out of a sense of necessity. We feel like if we do something, do a style, then we need to investigate that style further. Yeah, we need to own it, and the name is Futhermore, and that's sort of the business. That's the mission statement. Take things a step further.
It's the crazy one with all the spices and the coriander and things like that, and the mustard seeds.
Our beer, we are actually the control group, so we're doing more of your standard IPA, and I guess ours is the one against which the others will be measured to see how much they stray from the original formula.
was fun to have my hands in 6 recipes at a time and run with that. And it was fun to go to a few people and just talk specifically to them about one recipe and get their reaction, and then go to a different group. And so, it was kind of nice to compartmentalize a little bit and have the 6 groups. And it was great that I was just picking up the details and some loose ends while Dan and Andy were really, and the customers as well, the guests, they were doing a lot of work. But yeah, it was really fun. I'd never done anything like it, and it's cool. That's gross. That's gross. Smells like tacos. What is going on here? Heavy on the cumin. That'll be better when it's diluted. I started homebrewing, but I was not a very good homebrewer. I was a little too anxious. It's going to be your job to make sure this goes on top of the fermenter for those guys so they know. In fact, maybe you can mark it, number 2. Careful. I started homebrewing at a time when I was sort of looking for a thing to do, looking for a career between majors and college, and thought, boy, brewing's really fun. I should do this. So I never took enough time with the step that I was on to own that, and I was always ahead of myself and doing like all grain mashes with like 17 decoctions when I didn't even really know what conversion was, and so.
Well, I've done a few batches of brewing at home, a little bit of homebrew, and I've been here before, and Futhermore certainly attracted me because I've had some of their beers, really enjoy the different kinds of things they were doing. I thought it'd just be a fun way to spend a vacation day instead of being in my cube.
I've been wanting to get into home brewing, and this was kind of a nice introduction to kind of see how some of this stuff is done, and plus you get to pick the brain of an actual brewer.
Yeah, I have homebrewed before. I left all my gear in Oregon, but actually last fall I made hard cider. I thought this was a good way of getting into the culture here without having to bring all my own gear. So
certainly black pepper they've used in other things, but the cilantro and things like cardamom were really different. So be really curious to taste the beers when they're done. Should be a lot of fun.
He's, obviously kind of passionate about his beers, and you can see that creativity in it when he's coming over and trying to, kind of changing up some of the recipes on the fly and being like, no, wait, I think we want to do this.
I think that, and the fact that we don't own a brewery today still kind of puts me in that test batch realm, the small system realm. And one is willing to take greater chances with the small system. And a lot of the research for today with the spice beers was done on a single bottle or a quart size. So I just open up 2 bottles of beer that I thought would work well with these spices, put the spices in a quart container, pour the beer in, cap it, and just think about that small scale. I think that allows us and allows me to be creative and not just get wrapped up in, well, what are people drinking? We'll make that and redo what's been done. It's gonna be, and we're gonna pour that all in. So yeah.
Experimentation. That's what it's all about. Aran and a lot of other craft brewers are bringing a really homebrew aesthetic to commercial beer production. Ultimately, though, we as homebrewers don't have to worry about selling stuff to the public or pleasing an audience or being commercially viable. We can put all the tamarind and cilantro in our beers that we want. I don't know if I'm going to personally go that far today. What do you think, Jake Keeler?
Well, typically I would not experiment like they were experimenting at Vine Park, and my brew day is not quite that hectic. But I think the experimentation gets at the heart of the fact that you can get stuck in a rut as a home brewer, and you can stop trying new things. And it is true that with homebrewing especially, you really don't know if you're going to like something or not like something unless you give it a try. So today, what we're going to do is take the spirit of what they did at Vine Park and take those words of Aran of starting small to heart and do a 5-gallon batch. We're going to split that 5-gallon batch into 2.5-gallon batches and experiment with both of those. Now, if these totally turn out like crap, well, it's 2.5 gallons of beer that we don't want to drink. So not a huge loss.
But they're not going to turn out like crap because I designed the recipes.
That's right. So what are we looking at today for these recipes?
Base wort, very simple. Pilsner malt, a little bit of Carahel, 40 IBUs of bittering. That could turn into almost anything, like
Yeah.
you pointed out, depending on the yeast. We could throw some lager in there, make a Pilsner, it could become an American Pale Ale. Field is wide open.
Exactly.
I thought we would take some spices and finish half the wort with some spices.
Okay, and what we've got here is we've got some ginger root, some Szechuan peppercorns, and some lemon peel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to go in one of the batches.
The other one, I thought we would treat it like an IPA and dose it with hops, but pick a very, very fruity blend of hops. Treat them kind of like spices, add them at the last minute. Really go for like a complex mix of tropical fruit, citrus, and berry, blackcurrant aromas and flavors.
And what do we've got? We've got Citra, we've got Artenum, and Streusel Malt?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Then I thought we could chop it up even further by swapping the yeasts.
Wow, this is getting crazy.
So I had originally pegged the late hop edition to pair with 1099 Whitbread.
Right here.
Nice kind of ester malt British profile.
Yep.
And 3711, the French
French
Saison,
Saison.
to go
Wow.
with the spices. But then I thought, what if we made an English Saison and a farmhouse IPA? Switch the yeast. So 1099 with ginger, lemon peel, and Szechuan peppercorns. 3711 with a whole lot of late hops.
Wow.
Let's get it on.
Let's get it on. Mike's going inside to get some cold water. Overshot the mash temp by a little bit, not too big of a deal. You can simply adjust your temperature by adding a little cold water. Some sponge water.
Keep your spoon hot. That way you don't drop temperatures down. Insert it back in.
You know, we're starting small. We're gonna do 5 gallons. We're gonna split it into 2.5 gallon batches. One batch is going to get the spices. One batch is gonna get more of the hops. They're both gonna get different yeasts. So we really have no idea how these beers are gonna turn out. We have some inclinations as to, you know, using these yeasts before, or using this particular malt before, but it really will be something where I'm really not sure what these beers are gonna taste like. And to me, that is pretty exciting.
I got you a beer too, Chip.
Okay,
Time to,
batch sparge.
because we are
Going to sparge
quickly.
and easily.
Wouldn't you know it? It's raining on Brew Day. Raining on Brew Day. Got the cameras inside, got the host outside. The dog is inside, and the host is outside.
Because The spices are going to go into the chilled wort along with the yeast. I want to sterilize them or sanitize them as much as possible. I've got some water just off the boil, 1 cup of water, and I'm going to dump the spices in that, cover it with a saucer to trap any volatile aromatics, and just kind of let that stew while the wort is chilling and kill off any bugs that came over from Szechuan on these peppercorns or anything living on the skin of that ginger. So I wanted a little kind of earthiness and spiciness from those Szechuan peppercorns. Kind of getting the same effect that you would get from a Saison yeast without using a Saison yeast. Hops, acidic, antibacterial, not going to worry about those. They're just going right in, just like dry hops, paired up with a 3711 French Saison. In you go. That is our future farmhouse IPA. By the way, we were about at the right gravity, but through True Loss we came up a little short in the bucket, so I added some water, brought the gravity down to about what I was shooting for. Now, English Saison. Got my nice and fragrant spice tea, steeped in boiling water. Chase that with some 1099 Whitbread English ale. Out. Well, after a long brew session, drinking beer, there's nothing like unwinding under the hop vines and drinking another beer.
That's right. You know, this episode, Vine Park and our experimentation here, really reminds me that experimentation is at the core of home brewing. It is really what we are doing. And, you know, I don't advocate that people experiment on every batch. In fact, you should keep it to a minimum, I think. But experimentation has to be done because you never know where that next flavor is going to come from. You might find a new house style, a new recipe that you really love. And you'll never know unless you try.
That's exactly right. Some poor benighted Sumerian thousands of years ago slurped down a bunch of porridge that had been left out in the sun too long and got a wicked buzz. And thank goodness he did.
Yeah, amen to that.
So stay tuned and we'll let you know how Tomax and Xamot turned out.
That's right.
You can see the recipes in full detail on brewingtv.com/recipes.
And speaking of experimental recipes,
don't forget our first ever BTV challenge, Potter's Beer open versus closed fermentation. You can find the recipe on that same page as well. Please help us conduct a scientigiously integritous experiment.
That's right. And you know, the NHC is only a couple weeks ago, so it seems like a long time ago, but for some of you out there who were able to attend, if you want to relive those memories, check that out. If those of you who could not make it and want to live vicariously through us and those who were lucky enough to attend, check that episode out. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
I think that about does it for this week.
I think so.
All for brew.
Brew for all. Cheers, my man.
Cheers.
Leader of the Crimson Guard!
Brewing TV.
Do you think we should
Call your mom?
recirculate?
Let me ask Jeremy
King, if we should.
Vorloff.
My mother would say we should Vorloff.
Let's Vorloff. Cobra!